As I get started here, just a thought. For me, in my lifetime, probably one of the most significant technological advancements has been the internet. Does anybody know what the internet is? But I mean, when you kind of, you think about life. Many of you, you were born and the internet existed, and there's a bunch of us that was something that came along, and we're learning how to navigate and to utilize. But the internet is an incredibly powerful resource, is it not? I mean, it has the ability, right? You say, "Hey Alexa," and what's the weather like in Alaska? And it'll tell. What's the weather like at Richard and Faith's farm? And it'll tell you what the weather's like. Hey Google, give me directions too. And the internet somehow, when you just talk to it, or you can jump online and you type in your questions, it will just start firing back all this information to you. It really is a remarkable technological advancement that helps us in so many ways as people. YouTube is a great resource. I found myself utilizing YouTube within the past couple of weeks because I found a puddle of water outside of my dishwasher. And the real clue was we have a wood floor, and the floor was warped. And I'm like, what is going on? Obviously, there's water. And where's the water coming from? And so I began to poke around and get kind of underneath the dishwasher and begin to kind of take note of what all is going on. I'm like a do-it-yourself kind of a guy. I like to use my hands and try to figure things out and solve my problem. And so I'm underneath this, kind of looking underneath. You got a 4-inch window there. You're looking at underneath there, and I can see there's waters dripping beneath the float valve. Now, most people don't know what the float valve is. I didn't know what the float valve was, but I tell this part, right? And so I started to do some research on the internet and YouTube. I came across this YouTube video, like how to deal with a leak with a float valve. And this guy was amazing. He tells me, okay, this is what happens. This is where the part is. This is how you undo the part. I'm like, I would never have thought that that's where you get at the part. I wouldn't have even guessed that that's the place. That thing would have been in the way. I probably would have pulled it apart and broke it just trying to get access. But no, all you got to do is you just do this little thing like that, and boom, boom, and out the part comes, and you clean it all out, and there's a washer in there. You clean that up and put it back together, and within 10 minutes, because I had this YouTube video, and the power of the knowledge and the information, within 10 minutes, I didn't break anything. I put the parts together, and now my dishwasher works week. The internet, it's a powerful resource. And, it had me kind of thinking how, in some ways, the internet is like God. And after I had that thought, I thought, I should go to the internet and find out if anybody else has had that thought. So I Googled it. What is, does anybody think that the internet's like God? And there's all these articles. I found something that's 20 years old. And basically, here's the kind of the thinking on how the internet is like God. So the internet is omnipresent, right? Anywhere that you can get Wi-Fi, you can get the internet. You can go all the way 1,300 miles over to Richard and Faith's property, and you can get on the internet, and just as easily as you can do it here. If you have Wi-Fi, right? You have Wi-Fi there, right? So you can do it. It's like wherever you go in the world, wherever there's Wi-Fi, the internet is present. It's omnipresent. Somebody else had suggested it's like omnipotent, all powerful, in that a new can put a bit of information out, and then like instantly all across the globe, we're all aware of this, and it can generate or cause something immediately to happen. The president, right, put in a whole bunch of tariffs, right, and the stock market went boom, right? But people all over the world knew as soon as that happened, right? And that's probably contributed to the stock market going, I don't even know how all that stuff works. But just saying like how powerful the internet is. And then some people said, that's like omniscient, right? It's all-knowing. And the internet can tell you things about me, right? You can Google my name and find out where I live and find out my telephone number and find out all kinds of stuff. And I can find a YouTube video to help me fix my leaky dishwasher. But for as much as people try to kind of talk about the internet being like God, the reality everybody recognizes is the internet is not God. It falls way short of God. And the other thing that is true about us as people is we need guidance, and that's what's been so helpful about the internet. It's a place, it's a resource to get guidance in life. Now, it's one thing to seek guidance for how to fix a leaky dishwasher. It's another thing, though, to get guidance on where do you find a wife, or how do you find a husband? Right? I guess you can go and utilize one of the dating apps, but that can only take you so far. It might connect you to a person, but how do you figure out if that's the right person to be your spouse? Or how do you deal with a child who is consistently disobedient and rebellious as a parent? Like, where do you get guidance for parenting your child? Or what about your relationship with your spouse and where you're at there, and where do you get any guidance on how to grow that relationship? Where do you get guidance? Well, the internet can only give you some suggestions, and when you start asking those kinds of questions, the internet starts to give you contradictory answers too. That's interesting, right? Because you get this perspective from this person and this perspective from that person. So now you're getting contradictory answers. So the internet is only so good, but yet people need guidance, and people have been seeking guidance since people have been alive, right? We've all needed guidance. And we're in this series, Genesis, right? It all starts here. And today, we're going to go back and we're going to look at a story of where people needed guidance. And it actually has to do with needed guidance finding a spouse, a wife for the son of Isaac, Abraham's son Isaac. So we'll be looking at Genesis chapter 24. So if you have a Bible, I invite you to turn there. If you don't have Bibles, we have them at the Welcome Center, and they're free. Feel free to pick them up. Download a Bible app. It's another great resource to have with you on your phone and quickly accessible anywhere in the world. But Genesis chapter 24, we've been working through the book of Genesis, just kind of looking story after story. It's been an interesting study to read about all different kinds of topics as we have been informed as to who God is and how the world got created and who we are as people and our need to be connected in relationship and the husband-wife relationship and sexual relationship and destruction of the world because of evil. And last week was Sodom and Gomorrah and the evil and the wickedness of people and how we can be just as evil and wicked as them. But today, we jump from Genesis. Last week we were in chapter 19. We're going to skip 20, 21, 22, and we're going to go right over to chapter 24. And the events that took place prior to this were these. So we last left Abraham with God promising in this covenant in Genesis chapter 17, in which God says, I will do what I say I will do, right? I'm going to give you a son. And then last week in 18, we were reminded that God appeared to Abraham and said, this time next year. So that has happened in Abraham's life. Isaac was born. Chapter 20 and 21, and then chapter 22 is this significant faith moment for Abraham in which God asks Abraham to offer his son as a sacrifice. And that's an interesting text. And I did a message on that 2 years ago, back in February of 2023, in our series Faith in a Faithless Time, in which I talked about that text. But today we're just kind of going into chapter 24, and what we find in 24 is that Abraham's wife Sarah has now died. 23, we learn this. She dies. And Isaac, at this point in his life, is 37 years old. And Abraham is desirous of his son having a wife because God had promised. Remember, God's covenant with Abraham is, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to turn you into a great nation. Abraham doesn't have any kids, and he's 75 years old when God promises this. He said, I'm going to give you this land. So this is the covenant. This is the promise. It all starts there. Abraham, cognizant of this promise and desirous of his son having children, has this vision or this desire for his son to have a wife. At this point, Isaac is 37 years old. So what we're going to do this morning is we're going to begin reading at verse 1. I'm going to read verse 1 through 4, and I'm going to pause. I'm just going to make some comments, and this is kind of the way that we're going to go through the text. The way that I've outlined it is I've just given us a sub-point at the beginning of each little section, and so like this sub-point is that Abraham gives this instruction to his servant to go find a wife for his son Isaac, all right? So we're going to read the text. I'm going to pause. I'm going to make some comments. Now, as we're reading this morning, I'm going to invite you to just try to consistently put yourself in the mindset of being the servant. Okay, try to be the servant. Try to think about, you're the servant of Abraham, and he's giving you a task. And what it is for you as the servant to be successful in the task, the questions that you might ask, how you might feel about accomplishing this task that has been given to you. And quickly, you'll see the need for guidance. So beginning in verse 1, Abraham was now old, and he was well advanced in years. And the Lord had blessed him in every way. So that takes us kind of back to the covenant and how God promises to bless him. Right? He said, I'm going to bless you, and I'm going to bless the world through you. So God has been faithful. This is what the author is telling us. God has been faithful. This is now 62 years later from when God first appeared to Abraham. The Lord had blessed him in every way. So Abraham says to his chief servant in his household, the one in charge of all that he had. So this is a significant position. Abraham is an incredibly wealthy man. He's got lots of flocks. He's got lots of money. He has lots of people living within his community. He has hundreds of people living within his community. And this is the top guy, the CEO. If Abraham's the CEO, he's the CFO. And so he says to the chief servant in his household, the one who's in charge of all he had, put your hand under my thigh. Kind of like put your hand on the Bible as you go before the judge and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth. So put your hand under my thigh. I want you to swear by the Lord, the God of heaven, the God of earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom we are living, but that you will go to my country, my own relatives, and get a wife for my son Isaac. Okay, so really clearly here, we outline for us is this task that the servant is now given. Go and get a wife. You must leave Canaan. Now, what isn't explained in the text is to why Abraham would say, don't find a wife for me from the Canaanites. And while it's not here, there's a couple of deductions that we can make. One is that we remember back in Genesis, chapter 5, 6, and 7, and the flood, and then coming out of the flood was chapter 8 and 9, and God's blessing to Noah after he comes out from the flood, and then Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and one of whom goes and sees his father's nakedness. And from that, Canaan comes from that line and is cursed. And so Abraham doesn't want anything to do with the cursed line, is one suggestion. Certainly, as you keep reading the Old Testament, we find that God gives the very clear instruction to his nation, to his children, to his people, to not take spouses from Canaan. Why? Because they will lead you astray. They will lead you away from me. So don't go get a wife from the Canaanite women, but instead go get a wife from my country, my own relatives. Go there and get this wife for Isaac. So, again, you're the servant. What are you thinking if you're the servant? Well, I can't get a wife easily here, so I got to go a long ways away. What else might you be thinking about if you're the servant? Well, where am I going to find this woman, right? So I got to go back to his hometown, but where am I going to, as all these questions begin to kind of roll in. And then once you find this woman, is she going to come back with you? Which is the question they now ask, verse 5. So the servant then asks, well, what if this woman that I go, make this long journey and find her is unwilling to come back with me to this land? Shall I then take your son, Isaac, back to that country where you came from? See, he's wrestling with this difficult question. How am I going to find this woman and convince her to come hundreds of miles back with me? What if she doesn't come back? What's the higher value here, Abraham? Do you want Isaac to have a wife, or do you want Isaac to have a wife who lives here with us in this community in Canaan? See his tension? See how hard this might be? Well, so this is what Abraham says, verse 6. Make sure that you do not take my son back there. Okay, so he's being really clear. Now, no, you don't take Isaac from this land that we're living in Canaan. He's got to stay here. Now, why does he want him to stay here? Well, because Canaan is the place that God has promised as the promised land, right? So don't take him out of this place. He's got to stay here. And then Abraham says this to the servant. He says, now, the Lord, the God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's household and my native land, and who spoke to me and promised me on oath, saying, to your offspring I will give this land. Right? So he's going back to the covenant. He's going back to the promise. God promised this land. Don't you dare take Isaac from this land. And then he makes this interesting statement. He says, that God, Yahweh, he will send his angel before you. You need direction as to where to find this wife? God is going to send his angel before you so that you can get a wife for my son from there. I am confident that God will guide you to the woman. Now, if the woman is unwilling to come back with you, because I don't know if she's going to be willing, even though I'm confident in putting my trust in God to guide you, but if the woman is unwilling to come back, well, then I release you from the oath. You can come back home, but definitely don't take my son back there. 3 times, really clear, right? He's got to stay here. This is what God has promised, this land. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of his master Abraham and swore on oath to him concerning this matter. All right, now again, you're the servant, right? So now you've committed yourself to this. Okay, I got to go find this woman for Abraham. Now, where am I going? Hey, Google, send me directions to Abraham's relatives. It doesn't exist, right? Abraham, where are you from? And then how do I get directions to that place where you came from? Well, he's got to make this long trip all the way. Well, let's read the text. Verse 10. So the servants, this is a very difficult task. The servant took 10 of his master's camels and left, taking with him all kinds of good things from his master. And he set out for Aram Naharaim and made his way to the town of Nahor. Now, pause for a second. Nahor is not the name of the town. Nahor is the name of Abraham's brother. So again, if you go back in Genesis chapter 11, just before we get to chapter 12, where God made this promise to Abraham, I'm going to bless you and turn you into a great nation, made this covenant, we find that Abraham had a brother. His brother is Nahor. Their father is Terah. Their father and the family had been living in Ur, way down, a long ways away over in the Saudi Arabia territory. They went north, and they came east or west, a long ways north and a long ways west. And they settled in a town called Haran. And it was from there where God met Abraham and said, you need to come into Canaan, some 550 miles. So it's 550 miles. This guy takes 10 camels, and he's got to go 550 miles. Now, the camels are loaded down with all kinds of stuff. He tells us, right? He takes stuff from his masters, and he makes this 550-mile journey. Now, how long do you think it would take to go 550 miles by camel? I don't know how long it would take. You think you do 20 miles a day? 20 miles a day, do the math. What is that, like 3-4 weeks? So you have this long journey to this town. You're trying to find this guy, Abraham's brother, who Abraham hasn't seen in 62 years. 62 years. So it's been 62 years. Now, you get to the town and you got to wonder, does he still live here? I mean, it's been 62 years. Does he still have the same address? Or did he, move down the street? Or he moved to a new neighborhood? Or did he move to the next city? And you got to also be wondering about, well, what is his family like? Did he have any kids? And how many kids did they have? And where did they go to school? And did they go to college? And did they move to America? You're like, where are they? Like all these questions you got to be feeling as you're the servant. Because you come to the town of Nahor, and you got to find this woman. What did this guy even have any women? Were there any daughters? I have 5 sons and 1 daughter. Some people only have all sons. What do you do then? And then he did have a daughter or lots of daughters. Are they all married? And if there is one that's unmarried, so if I got to the right town and there is one daughter who's unmarried, how am I going to identify her? Like, I don't have a picture, and I can't ask the internet on that one either. So how do you find this woman that you've been sent to go find? Can you feel the tension that this servant must have felt after traveling weeks and weeks? And so he comes to the town, and it's interesting what we see next. He has the camels kneel down near the well outside of the town. Okay, so he doesn't go into the town. He makes it to the town. He stays on the outside of the town. And he has the camels kneel down near the well. Well, this is a pretty common thing for people to congregate around a well. The well was a meeting place for the community because everybody needs water. Now, the text also gives us another indication that it was towards evening, and that's the time that women, that's pretty significant, go out to draw water. Seems like a pretty strategic move on the part of this servant, right? I'm going to go to the place where maybe I'll find a woman. And maybe I'll find the right woman, but I don't know how I'm going to find that right woman. But maybe I'll find a woman. So pretty significantly here, he makes a strategic play, right? He goes to the place where potentially women will be found. Now, antiquity tells us that the carrying of water is quite common. We've got all kinds of archaeological info to help us to see that women. This was a task that many women performed, carrying water in jars and in other kinds of leather bladders to collect water. They'd have to travel, or in this case, go to the community well. And this is still a common practice today. So Richard reminded us that we are incredibly wealthy. 2.1 billion people gather their water every single day. We just wake up and turn the faucet on. But 2.1 billion people have to go to fetch their water every day. And this is primarily a task, even today, that women are the ones that do. And it takes, on average, about 30 minutes a woman spends collecting gallons of water just to survive for the family for the day. So this is the reality of life. The harshness of life not lived in a modern world like we live in. And it's just the way that things work. And so strategically, he decides he's going to go hang out at the well. Now, there's a second thing he does. So it's like, how do you get guidance, right? How do you make a decision? Or where are you going to find this wife? First, he's strategic. Second, he seeks guidance. It's not, hey, Google. It's not, hey, Alexa. It's, hey, God. So verse 12 tells us that he prayed, hey, God, I need some help. Oh, Lord, God of my master Abraham, give me success today. That phrase in English, give me success, is from two Hebrew words. The first Hebrew word is to happen, and the other word is face. So happen before your face. It means basically to make it happen in front of me. So, oh God, make happen in front of me. This is my request. Make happen in front of me today. Show kindness to my master Abraham. See, I'm standing beside the spring, and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water. Now get his request. May it be that when I say to a girl, please let down your jar that I may have a drink, which is a very common thing to do. This is not an uncommon request. This is the way that the ancient Near East functions. You are a stranger and people welcome you. This is a way that they extend a welcome, is to offer you food and water and even shelter. May it be, God, when I ask a woman to give me a drink, May it be that she says this, drink, and I'll water your camels too. Now, isn't that an interesting request? God, I'm looking for direction. I need to find this wife for my master, Abraham's son, Isaac. Would you give me clear guidance, and the clear guidance be that when I ask this lady to give me a drink, she says, I'll give you a drink, but I'll also water your camels. Now that's an interesting request. Do you know how much water a camel drinks? In 15 minutes, a camel can drink 30 gallons of water. Okay? 30 gallons of water. How many camels are there? 10 gallons, or 10 camels, right? 10 camels times 30 gallons of water is how much water? 300 gallons of water. 300 gallons of water this woman is going to offer to carry. If she can get 5 gallons in her pitcher, how many trips is she going to have to make? 60 trips. If she gets 5 gallons in her pitcher, how much does carrying one pitcher weigh? 40 pounds, right? Because a gallon is roughly 8 pounds. So she's carrying 40 pounds of water to water the camel, and she's going to do this 60 times. That's his request. God, just send along this woman. When I ask her for a drink of water, she says, I'll give you a drink of water, plus I'll water all your camels. I'll get 60 jars of water weighing 40 pounds and give it to your camels. What a request. Now, what kind of woman would do that? An industrious woman, right? A woman who is welcoming, kind, externally focused rather than internally focused, willing to serve, basically a woman of character. A woman of character would do this. And you can see how in his request, he's asking God to guide him to the right woman, and this right woman has got to be a woman of character. So continuing the story, he says, please, may it be that when I say to the girl, please let down your jar, that I may have a drink. She says, drink, I'll water your camels too. And then he says this, let her be the one that you have chosen. This is a very interesting statement, isn't it? It's one of which he's saying, look, I can't solve this problem myself. How am I going to find Abraham's brother, relatives, a woman, the right woman? Like, how am I going to do this? This is impossible. There's no dating apps, right? There's no Hello Bagel. There's no eHarmony. There's none of this. There's no way to do this. And so he asks God to work through very normal means to provide direction so he knows that she's the one that he chose, that God chose. God is the one that chose. It's not him that's choosing, it's God's that's choosing. By this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master. The text then goes on, and it's very interesting what happens next. So as the narrator, Moses explains, he says, before he had finished praying, so before he finished praying is a clue, is it not? Is it not? It's a clue. Isn't that saying something? Well, before he finished praying, this woman shows up, right? Rebecca shows up. Before he had finished praying, Rebecca came out with her jar on her shoulder. And then the narrator also tells us some more information. She was the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, who was the wife of Abraham's brother, Nahor. So this woman, Rebecca, is a relative. Her grandfather is Nahor. The girl was very beautiful. She was a virgin. No man had ever lain with her, so she's available to be married. She went down to the spring. She filled her jar. She came up again, and the servant hurried to meet her and said, please give me a little water from your jar. Drink, my lord, she said. She quickly lowered the jar to her hands and gave him a drink. And then after she had given him a drink, she said, I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have finished drinking. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough, ran back to the well to draw more water, and drew enough for all of his camels. Without saying a word, the man watched her closely to learn whether or not the Lord had made his journey successful. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took out a gold nose ring, weighing a beka, and 2 gold bracelets weighing 10 shekels. Then he asked, Whose daughter are you? Whose daughter are you? Please tell me, is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night? And she answered, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the son that Milcah bore to Nahor. And she added, we have plenty of straw and fodder, as well as room for you to spend the night. Then the servant got down, bowed down, and worshiped the Lord, saying, Praise be to the Lord, the God of my master, Abraham, who has not abandoned his kindness and faithfulness to my master. As for me, the Lord has led me on the journey to the house of my master's relatives. This is an amazing passage that teaches us that when we need guidance, it's wise to use the internet. It's a good resource. It's being strategic, but that's not enough. And also, this is a story that teaches us and reminds us that while we can use and should use our wisdom, our God-given wisdom, there is wisdom that we need that's beyond us, and that is only given to us by the one who knows, and that is God. And therefore, we must seek him for guidance. Seek him for guidance. As I thought about my own life and the application of this passage, I can remember being a young man, 16, 17 years old, wondering what it is that God would have for me in life. And it was probably a year and a half period of like trying to figure out. I started when I was a sophomore. You know, I mean, you get asked these questions when you're in high school. What are you going to do when you grow up, right? I don't know what I'm going to do. I like working with my hands. Maybe I'll build houses or something like this. I don't know. Go into one of the trades. I don't know what I'll do. But somebody made some comment about ministry to me. And I also kind of was aware of some interest in caring for and coming alongside people and helping them spiritually. And my youth pastor then came to me one day and he said, Kirk, would you be willing to preach sometime? I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to stand in front of people. That's a scary thing. I'm only 17 years old, 16 years old. Well, what do I have to say to all these old people? Yeah, I'm an old person now. And so this was what God did in my heart. I said yes to my youth pastor. I'd be willing to do this. And then I started praying. I said, God, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, what I'm supposed to preach, what I'm supposed to talk about. But God placed Romans 12, 1 and 2 on my heart. And then as I prepared for that message, my prayer just was, God, is this what are you calling me into ministry? Do you want me to be a pastor? Like, is this what you have for my life? How do I know what the answer to that is? Like, I need guidance. And so my prayer to God was simply this, right? The servant's prayer to God was, hey, God, when I ask for a drink of water, can the lady also say, I'll water your camels too? So my prayer was, hey, God, when I preach this message, would you just give me direction by your church, giving me a response, some kind of affirmation or direction? And that was my prayer. And I preached that message. And I will always remember the ending of that and how people came out and they talked to me, a kid, and what they said. And in particular, I remember the words of one man. It was a big, tall, strong guy. And he shook my hand. And what he said to me, the affirmation that he said was, it was just like God speaking to me and saying, this is what I'm calling you to do. This is what I'm calling you to do. And I remember just feeling elated, grateful, having clear sense of direction. I know what I'm going to do for the next 7 years of my life. I've got to go to college, and I got to go into seminary, and then after that, I'll head into ministry. So this is the trajectory that I will go along, and that has been my journey, right? And so here, some 40 years later, here I am in pastoral ministry for 30 years. God, I don't know what to do. God, I need help. God, I need direction. And the prayer is through very normal means, right? Very normal means. It's a very normal thing to say, hey, would you give me a drink of water? It's not a normal thing necessarily for somebody to say, and I'll water your camels too. That's not an impossible thing. There are people who are servant-oriented, servant-minded, thoughtful people who reach out and care for others. And that is what we see in this story. A couple of things to draw to our attention as I bring this to a close. Number one, I think it's really important for us to understand that this is not a miracle. Sometimes people get confused with miracles. A miracle is God's intervention in the world when he just supernaturally turns things upside down according to the natural order of the way that things should go. So a miracle would be like when Joshua asked that God would cause the sun to stand still, and the sun stands still, and they battle throughout the night with the sun standing still. Or when Hezekiah says, would you have the shadow on the steps go backwards, and the shadow on the steps goes backwards. Or when Elisha says, God, will you cause the axe head that's somewhere sunk 8-10 feet down in the stream to just float to the top? Or when Jesus says, water turn into wine. Those are miracles, right? When something that happens in the natural order of things and does a reverse, does what it's not supposed to do, that's a miracle. And in the Bible, when you read the Bible, it's very small percentages of miracles that actually occur in terms of the amount of text that they're given. But less than 5% of the Bible talks about miracles. That's not to say that God doesn't do miracles. It's not to diminish miracles. It's just to say that God mostly doesn't work through miracles, but through providence. And providence is when God works within the natural order of things to accomplish his will. And so for me, he worked within the very natural order of things to have somebody speak words of affirmation to me that became this very clear sign, this very clear direction that sent my life in one direction for the remainder of it. That simple words from somebody who I believe God spoke through him to me. And God spoke to the servant about the woman through Rebecca by offering to water the camels. She's the one. God's providence. Now, I'm going to invite the worship team to come on up, and some things about God's providence, right? When you read a story like this, we think it's miraculous. We think it's a miracle because he prayed, and before he even was done praying, the text tells us, Rebecca showed up. So we knew that God was already answering the prayer. Right? And so that's why we think it's a miracle. But one of the things that we may fall into a trap of thinking is that when we ask God for guidance, and you read a story like this, you think it's going to be instant, right? God is going to instantly give you that direction. Sometimes it's not very instant. It reminds me of I don't know how many passages. There's so many passages in which we are admonished and told to wait, to wait, to wait, to wait, to wait on the Lord. And sometimes waiting might be, in Abraham's case, it was 25 years of waiting for God to provide Isaac, his son. You may be in a place right now where you need guidance. You need guidance in your marriage. You need guidance as a parent. You need guidance in finding a spouse. Way to go at being strategic. But are you asking God? And this might be the most important takeaway for all of us, is how much are we seeking God? Asking him for guidance. You know, as elders right now, we have a couple of significant things in front of us. And I'd ask that you pray for us. And actually, you're part of the answer to the prayer in how you respond. You know, one of the things that's in front of us and that we are praying about is how in the world, where in the world does $160,000 come from to move forward with what we believe is this facility renovation project that we should do, which connects with our vision of being internally strong by welcoming people. God, give us guidance on that. We also have this question in front of us, is what do we do if we're a growing church? And some are asking the question, what happens when we outgrow the space? And we need guidance on that. God, give us guidance. And so we invite you as elders to pray with us in those. I'm going to invite you now to stand and let's sing this final song. 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. And don't lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll direct your paths. Something about us learning to just sit and trust, not trying to figure it all out, especially when life is really hard and really ugly and really messy. Not leaning on our own understanding because we can't figure it out. Trusting in him. And somehow, some way, through all of that mess, he'll direct our paths. So live in that faith. See you next week.